Thank you both for joining us today. Greg, what are some of the most important things for state legislators to understand about water infrastructure and the challenges to the systems?
Yes, well, one of the things that ASCE does is produce a report card on the condition of America's infrastructure. And we talk about how important that is to our economic prosperity and our quality of life. And the fact is that that affects states as well as our nation as a whole. And while maybe utilities are run locally, the fact is they are a combination of those utilities that make up that economic prosperity in our state. And what we know today is that we are underfunding our infrastructure, water, wastewater, roads and bridges in this country and in each of our states. And so the thing to remember is that we need to fund these systems to close that gap, to avoid a loss to our gross domestic product, to avoid a loss of jobs, to remain economically competitive with the world.
Chris, your state suffered an extremely serious tragedy in what occurred in Flint. What advice can you give to policymakers to avoid such a situation occurring in their state?
I think number one is, I get asked this question, could Flint happen, here? And my answer is, I think Flint could happen anywhere where policymakers and the public take safe and clean water for granted. And when they fail to make investment in infrastructure to protect our drinking water and our recreational source waters that we get our drinking water from, then yes, it can happen there. And we know that there are currently 2,000 public water systems that have high lead levels. They serve over 6 million people in this country. There are small, medium, and even some large systems. 600 of those have levels like Flint at 40 parts per billion. And so we know it's happening, but we also know we can do it. We can make the investments that are needed to improve our systems. We can make sure that our treatment facilities are operating correctly, and that we can start to get the lead out of the systems in our piping and our plumbing fixtures. And it's doable, but if we don't start to do it now, it's only going to cost us more later on.
With that in mind, Greg, what are some of the costs that you really assume that some of these communities will have to bear to upgrade their systems just to meet the EPA standards?
Well, as it turns out now, certainly in drinking water, most communities are meeting the safe drinking water piece of the standard. Where they're falling behind is on their pipe systems, and they're not maintaining that. So what they do is for the income they get, the first dollar goes towards water treatment and meeting regulations. And if they have any money left over after that, they'll start replacing and repairing their pipes. We know that there are over 240,000 water main breaks a year in this country, and that we're losing. Last year we lost over 2 trillion gallons of treated drinking water. That's precious water that we treated and then we just lost it, that we paid for and we didn't get anything out of it. So what we need to do is place emphasis not only on the water quality piece, which we do for a good job, but we need to make sure that those pipe systems are able to convey that water from the treatment plant to your house.
Chris, you had mentioned during your talk that you had come up with 33 recommendations for the governor, and he is moving forward with at least 24 of them, if I remember correctly. What are some of the primary recommendations that your group came up with?
Recommendations, like for us, it was Department of Environmental Quality to get back to their primary mission of protecting human health in the environment. For the Department of Health and Human Services to not just collect data, but to analyze it and understand that data. For the governor's office to take the lead, they set the table and make sure that everyone and the issues are there. If you have to trust your gut. And moving forward. The EPA, our recommendation to them was to get involved sooner, that they cannot just sit by and let these situations develop. They need to be more involved. We asked that the governor create a commission to deal with lead poisoning. That's up and running. And the governor is going to come forward with some lead and copper rule revisions in Michigan, which will be the strictest rule out there in the country, and we're going to hope that others come involved. But most of the recommendations are pretty common sense. There are some that were for local and federal government, so they've sent those on to those agencies, and they have about 8 of our recommendations that they're still under review. But we really hope that we'll start to break down the silos that develop between departments, and that when we don't have a medical doctor in the cabinet, that we have someone who will be the chief medical officer who will report to the governor and can help and assist them on health issues. Because it's really, when it comes down to it, is not just a drinking water issue, it's also a health issue as well. So we encourage other states to make sure that they have someone they can draw on that can give them information on health and medical issues at that cabinet level.
Great. Well, thank you to both of you on behalf of the National Conference of State Legislatures, and we really appreciate your time with us.
Thank you.